Just speaking of the Final Four, Titus and I were there in 2017 in San Antonio, and we realized the Final Four is almost like a coaching conference, right? If you're not in the Final Four, a bunch of coaches come and they hang out, and there's these dinner parties and events. And we happened to see you there, Coach, for the first time. And we watched you hold court from a distance. I know we sound like we're weird stalkers right now, but we promise we're not. But we watched you have all these people sit around you, and you told, the war stories of basketball games in the past, and moments and time that you remember. So that experience being at the Final Four, is it fun being the coach there that's going to do the dinner parties and things like that, or is it a lot more fun being in the Final Four and competing, obviously with your team there, because it seemed like you were having fun on both sides of the equation?
Well, I mean, I think obviously having your team there is the way to go. But you know, I went there as a young coach, and I'm sitting there and I see Bob Knight walk by, or I see Jerry Tarkanian, or I see Jim Boeheim, or Jim Calhoun, or whomever, and you sit there as a young coach, and you're like, I want to get to the point that I'm like that guy, and I think what I've always tried to keep in mind that those young guys sitting over there, kind of want to be what we are, and should be, and should have that opportunity, and so I try to spend as much time with the young guys as I possibly can. I think everybody wants to go, get in that clique, and that you're very comfortable in. And I'm not saying I don't do that. I do that as well. But I try to keep in mind, the times when I was whatever, 25 years old or 24 years old, and sit there in awe and watch those guys walk by. And then I've been blessed because I've got to coach against most of them.
You are obviously a legend in this game, and the peers. You're speaking to the younger guys, but your group of coaches, your class of coaches, it almost feels like you guys are. We're never going to see this again. The likes of you and Coach Boeheim and Coach Krzyzewski and Roy Williams and on down the line. Is that like something that you feel blessed to be a part of? Is it? Do you feel like a fraternity with kind of the older heads, the guys that have been around for decades and decades in this sport, or is it more of just a coincidence that you've just set out to have your own career and do your own thing, and then when you look up, you just so happen to be amongst this group of guys?
Well, I can remember being a young guy and hearing everybody say there's never going to be another Abe Lemons.
Yeah.
And guess what? There hasn't been another Abe Lemons. There's not going to be another Jerry Tarkanian.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been another Jerry Tarkanian. So, there's never going to be another Bob Knight. There really has never been another Bob Knight. So, I think that, guys like that have etched themselves in history. Al McGuire. I mean,
Yes,
have you seen Al McGuire walking around lately? I don't think so. I haven't seen a young Al McGuire walking around recently. So, I think every era kind of has its own guys. And, I can remember this. I remember Ed Janka had Nike clinics, and Ed, very, very dear friend. And he was kind enough when I was at the University of Akron, and I didn't know, come here from Sikkim. And he said, I want you to come and be a clinician for me. And of course, I was the guy who spoke at 8:00 in the morning on Sunday after everybody, staggered in from still being, having the effects of the night before or whatever. So, but I loved it. And I was the first one to get there. I sat in Ed's suite, and as those guys that I just talked about and more, Louis Carnesecca, on and on and on. And I just sat there and I listened. Lute Olson, I sat and I listened. I listened to him tell stories. I listened to him talk ball. I tried to get him to talk ball. I mean, I followed Valvano around all night one night till about 4:30 in the morning till he finally said, all right. So now we'll talk. And just talk a little bit of basketball with them. So, I'm blessed. I mean, I feel blessed that I came around at about the right time. Those guys were great to me as a young guy who, I wasn't really one of them, and they treated me like one of them, and they were very kind and very good to me, and I learned a lot from them, and I'm blessed.